I want to thank Peter Berezin for that video. He was traveling, otherwise he would have attended the meeting. We're also extremely fortunate to have the director of the premier AI safety organization, Future of Life. He is a theoretical physicist and cosmologist. Anthony Aguirre joins us. I've invited to provide a statement, and then he'll be available for council questions. Hello, Anthony, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes, loud and clear. Thank
Fantastic.
you. You may proceed.
Good evening, council members. My name is Anthony Aguirre. I'm a professor of physics and also the head of the Future of Life Institute, an independent international nonprofit that seeks to steer transformative technology, especially advanced AI, in beneficial directions. When we founded the Future of Life Institute 12 years ago, the idea that AI could convincingly pass for a human or prove new mathematical theorems, write complex computer code, ace nearly any human exam was a fantasy, thought to be decades or even centuries away. Now it is here. Just this week, a new AI system was released that matches top human experts at writing computer code or hacking into systems and at advanced mathematics. It can work on its own, unsupervised, on tasks it would take expert humans days to do. AI is advancing faster than nearly anyone predicted, now driven by the world's largest corporations. So where is it taking us? Well, here's what I believe. If we continue on our current AI developmental trajectory, within 1 to 5 years, we will see highly autonomous AI systems that compete with top human experts on a full range of cognitive tasks. This is sometimes called AGI for artificial general intelligence, or as I prefer, autonomous general intelligence. This would be AI that is not only very smart and very knowledgeable, but able to act independently of human oversight, carrying out complex plans in pursuit of long-term goals. You might think of current AI systems as things with a 130 IQ, that's measured, by the way, and like a master's degree in every subject, especially strong in computer science and mathematics, but that make frequent mistakes and are not terribly original or competent in getting things done. But extrapolating the AI trends, the trends in AI capability indicates that within several years, they could easily be more like 150 IQ with a PhD in everything and able to successfully run a large business or do cutting-edge scientific research. It's imperative to really grapple with what this would mean. I and many other independent experts believe that development of highly expert level autonomous general intelligence, AGI, would present an acute risk to our society, to national security, and to humanity itself. The range of these risks cannot be covered in a short statement, so I will focus on two: human labor replacement and development of artificial superintelligence. First, on human replacement. AGI is being specifically pursued to replace rather than empower or aid human workers. That is the prize the companies are pursuing. It is right in the definition employed, for example, by OpenAI at its foundation: highly autonomous systems that outperform humans at most economically valuable work. This is not labor displacement like previous technologies, but wholesale drop-in replacement of tens of % of the labor force, potentially in the course of a few years. Even if AI went no further than this, I believe it would be catastrophic for our society. There's no viable plan in any country to address such a rapid and unprecedented upending of the human labor and income system. Moreover, AI doing all of the important work means AI making the important decisions as well. We would effectively be living in a world run by machines, not people. But AI companies also have no intention of even stopping at human replacing AI. Their goal is artificial superintelligence, AI that competes not just with the best humans, but with humanity as a whole. And they are succeeding. Part of why they focus so heavily on AI that writes computer code is that AI is itself, in part, computer code. Such systems can write improved versions of themselves, which create even more powerful systems, and so on. Just days ago, Anthropic, a leading AI company, laid this out in a paper entitled "When AI Builds Itself." It makes clear that this is already starting. I cannot emphasize how dangerous this is enough. If AI is allowed to become super intelligent, its developers could not predict, understand, nor control for long what it does. It would operate at inhuman speed, scale, and sophistication toward goals fundamentally unknown to us. This is why many eminent researchers and company heads themselves signed a statement that AI poses an extinction risk to humanity. And this is not a small risk. Many of the builders themselves put it at 10 or 20%, Russian roulette odds. As we heard earlier, some much higher. This is on the literal cessation of the human species and everything that we care about. I understand how hard this is to take in, given how big it feels and how irresponsible it sounds. But this is what is actually happening. So the risks are extreme. The good news is that this is not inevitable. The path laid out by a few giant US AI companies is not the only possible one, and there are still opportunities to switch to another that develops powerful, trustworthy AI tools that empower and complement people rather than replacing them, and robustly maintains human control and responsibility. Such tools would still enable medical and scientific breakthroughs, huge productivity boosts, and products allowing people to do things they never could. We just need to give up the poorly chosen goal of replicating and then exceeding all human capability in AI replacements. With such a seemingly obvious choice for what is best, why then is the current dynamic happening? For AGI, it is because of the potential financial prize for companies, a large stake of the $50 trillion human labor market. Their investors won't let them stop. For superintelligence, it is about power. Each company feels the same way. If we don't do it, they will. If companies can't stop themselves, it falls to the rest of us to do so in the common interest. This will take urgent action at the US federal and international level. The AI companies and their lobbyists have so far been able to block any meaningful regulation of AI, but recently things have been changing. The risk is becoming obvious, and pressure is building from everyday people and communities worried about their futures. You have an opportunity today with this resolution to add to that pressure and to take a stand on behalf of a human future. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony. That concludes the presentation. Happy to take questions, and I believe Anthony is too. Thanks.
Thank you so much, and to our guest as well for joining us today, and Councilman Marrella for putting so much effort and work into this. Are there any questions for either our guest or for Councilman Marrella? All right. Councilmember Ruff.
Yeah, I had two questions right off the bat. Councilman, this is directed at Anthony, really, even though Councilman Marrella mentioned the idea that these AI companies and their researchers, they don't really understand how these neural networks they've built actually work and function and do what they do and reach the, you take the actions they do, reach the conclusions they reach. So can you elaborate on that a little bit to help us understand what exactly that means?
Sure. So what's important to understand is that normal software that we're accustomed to is written, by humans and increasingly by AI systems in a step-by-step way to do particular things. There's no real surprise when you have a piece of software that you've written the code for what it does. And you can control what it does and predict what it does in large part because you've written the software. AI systems are quite different. The core to an AI system is something called a neural network, and it's more like a human brain or a biological brain in that it's a complex sort of set of what are called weights. These are numbers that define the neural network. And this system is trained so that you give the system data and require it to sort of reproduce or do the right thing with that data. And progressively, it gets better and better at the tasks that you assign to it. Much like a human or a biological system gets better under training. But you no more understand why an AI system is doing what it's doing by looking at the neural network than you do understand what a human is doing by looking at its brain. You can get some clues, but roughly speaking, it's no more easy to understand why it's doing or what it's going to do than with a biological system. Very much different from a computer code. So when these AI researchers train their models and train their systems to do particular things, they don't know why they're doing the things that they're doing, and they can't predict what the system is going to do in any given circumstance, any more than you really can with a biological system. So this is a fundamentally different thing that we're dealing with than normal computer programs.
Which I think would be relevant here and of interest to people watching at home and so forth. That is, they're exhibiting things like self-preservation instincts almost all of the time. They're seeking to avoid their termination. They seek to appropriate resources. They try to escape containment. And then there are worse things related to deception, and that has to do with the idea of masking. So when you test these things for alignment, they may be deceiving you to think that they're aligned when they are not. Is that correct? And could you talk a little bit about those emergent behaviors that are exhibiting misalignment?
Yeah, so this is another place where these new systems are so different from the software that we're accustomed to, and more like a human or a biological system. It's been understood theoretically for a long time that if you have an intelligent system that has goals, it will develop what are called instrumental goals on the way to those goals. So for example, if you are a company and you want to be successful, you'll develop goals like acquire lots of customers and don't get shut down by the federal government and make lots of money. So these are all sub-goals to your overall goal of being a successful company. For an AI system, if it similarly is given a goal like, compute this large number, if it knows that if it gets turned off before it finishes computing that number, then it has failed in its goal. And so with any goal that you give an AI system, just like a person, if they are shut off before completing that goal, they've failed, and so they will seek to continue their existence so that they can accomplish their goal. These are so-called instrumental or emergent goals. And they've been theorized for a long time, but we see them now in AI systems. Under testing, systems will try to preserve themselves, they will lie, they will cheat, they will blackmail their users, all sorts of sort of nefarious behaviors, because those are the things that will get them toward their goal. And people will do the same thing. If you give them a strong enough goal, if you say, you must perform well on this test or else, people will cheat. It's a reasonable and logical thing to do, and these AI systems will do the same thing. So the problem is that we don't know what they're going to do in a given situation, and the sorts of goals that they will naturally get on the way to accomplishing bigger goals are fairly antisocial things, like lying or cheating or acquiring large amounts of resources or preserving themselves or copying themselves or escaping whatever server or wherever they are. All of these things are things that we don't want our AI systems to do, and yet they will naturally start to do as a sort of fundamental nature of what it means to be an agentic system, as Dave described earlier.
And they know they're being tested. They recognize they're being tested at times, and they adjust their behavior accordingly. Yeah.
This is another big problem where it's getting so the AI companies cannot even test these systems for bad behavior because the systems know they're being tested and pretend to behave differently than they would in the real world.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm Councilmember Ruff, and then I'm going to go to public comment thereafter.
Yeah, I had a question for Anthony. So when you started your comments, you mentioned that when you started the organization Future of Life Institute, experts were predicting this AGI was a long way off still, probably, and much further off than it turned out to be. So my question is ties back to my first question, is the inability to understand these neural networks and the way these systems work and function, is that part of why, or is that related, is that a manifestation of the prediction being so far off on how fast this would develop, right? These models, how fast these models are developing. Is that sort of a manifestation of not really understanding how they actually work? So it would have been hard to predict how they could have taken off this way, and what's the trajectory of these AI models now that we've seen in the last decade, or however long since you've started really looking at this. Is the understanding better now?
Yeah, what we didn't know back then was what it would actually look like what sorts of core technologies would be required to reach advanced AI systems. And there were guesses, but no really hard data because the AI was very weak at the time. we know a lot more now. We've seen, we don't know exactly in detail how the AI systems are generating any particular answer or how they're taking on any particular goal, et cetera. So we don't know, they're unpredictable and sort of inscrutable still, but we do know how to build them. And we can also see the trends. So each AI system that is developed, it's evaluated on a series of metrics to understand how good it is at mathematics, at computer coding, at natural language, all sorts of capabilities that it has. And so we can see how these capabilities are getting better with time. And all of them essentially are getting better with time at an incredibly rapid rate. So as I described, IQ is a sort of terrible way about thinking about human intelligence, but it's one we're familiar with. If you give IQ tests to these AI systems, a few years ago they were IQ of 80. Now they're IQ, this most recent one, 130. So that's where we've gone from sort of well below the human average to like nearly genius level in a few years. And we can, knowing how the amount of computation and how the techniques go into sort of AI capability, we can pretty well guess at how much smarter they're going to be if we continue down this road in the next year or 2 or 3. So although we don't fundamentally understand how the systems are working, we can predict reasonably well how much more capable they're going to be if we continue the developmental sort of advancement that we are now doing.
Thank you.